before the AI came in, when I joined a couple of years back, we had already 800 more bots running in the group. What we have as a group planned that we will have equal number of cobotic workforce. We not call it robotic, but cobotic workforce equivalent to the human we have in a GCC.
I read your blog recently, and it actually emphasizes on 3D philosophy, dedication, desire, and discipline. I would love to hear something more about it. You spend a lot of time in this industry.
Because the current technology is destructive. Now, you can't keep up pace to this, but you should have desire to learn and move forward. No, I think any AI implementation is backed by a milestone. I see with the geopolitical situations, India is in a very good place to get more of GCCs. So have a seat on the table, take decisions, influence, work with stakeholders, and have a different business outcome KPIs.
Today we are talking with Dr. Sanjeev Rastogi on a very profound topic of GCCs, how it's creating impact, what has been his experience. He's one of the top 3 leaders in Indian GCC and has been part of predominantly on Adani Group. So welcome Sanjeev, and it'll be great to speak about certain areas on how tech is impacting AI tech, operations, talent, and how whole GCC market is going to get impacted on Indian specific geography. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks to you and Nilesh Bhai for getting me here. And yes, as the conversation goes, I'll share my thoughts, my experience of last 30 years. I've worked with many organizations, American Express, Trenchard, Accenture, HP, Metro, Syngenta, and Deloitte before joining Adani Group. It has been a journey of sorts. I've worked in various industries, but happy to be here and having a conversation with you. Thank you again.
It's an honor. So when you're specifically talking about such an expanse of multiple businesses, and again technology dominates or it becomes a very good vantage point on the operation standpoint, initial challenges, how did you tackle initial challenges of tackling such a big expanse like this?
I think a very good question. The whole idea is that we have 15 instances of SAP. We acquired a lot of companies. They come with different systems, multiple systems. We have business application, around 800, 900 of them. And as you said, 26 different businesses. So the underlying was that bring processes, they should have standard processes irrespective of the technology we use, irrespective of the systems we use.
Correct.
And what we did was, we said every business unit, every process across the group would be look like the same. And what we wanted to do was, rather than moving, because we were moving work from business units to the GCC centralized operations, what we wanted to take was the centralized and homogeneous process across the group. So while the systems were different, each legal entity or each listed entity has a different underlying system, we wanted to make sure the process looks like the same.
Okay.
And that is scalable, very transparent, and gives assurance and one sense of truth. So I think that is how we handle it. So we have digitized all our processes. We have created an SOPs, and anything which you do, right from payment of vendors, setting up master data, closing of books, everything is transparent, everything is homogeneous, everything is standardized. It is interdependent, it is not dependent on the systems we use. And I think that's the power of the GCC.
Totally. And at NSquare, as a part of our own GCC service Decorum, we are focusing a lot on AI and innovation area. And what I really wanted to ask you, when we have predominantly different verticals with how Adani Group operates because every vertical determines different processes, different dominance. Are there any specific examples in your operatives, specifically different for energy segment, different specifically for airports, or certain these kind of verticals have different dominance on the operatives of yours?
See, while the business operations, we are implementing technology, AI on the front end operations or on the day-to-day operations. With reference to the GCC, I must tell you that what we have done is we have said we look at the entire process end to end.
Correct.
And for example, invoice processing. So we are looking at making it touchless, making it seamlessly, and making it 100% agentic AI. And before the AI came in, when I joined a couple of years back, we had already 800 more bots running in the group.
Awesome.
in the finance process. Now we have consolidated and made it to 400. So what we have done is we have said that what is our standardized homogeneous process, what is more transactional, what is more rule based, and where we can bring SLM, LLMs and transform that entire process. So what will happen is most of the bottom layer, because we have a pyramid in the organization, the first two layers will get I would say not eliminated, but will get rationalized in terms of the number of people we require to do these processes. Will give us scalability, which gives us much better turnaround times, much better assurance in terms of completing those transactions. So we have identified 2-3 areas where we are implementing AI. I think they are around 30-40% in the process. They are only in finance. They are also in HR. They are also in procurement. They are also in many other processes we serve out of GCC. So you will see all across processes which are scalable, which are transparent, transactional, and which are already consolidated and streamlined, will get an AI implementation. What we have as a group planned that we will have equal number of cobotic workforce. We not call it robotic, but cobotic workforce equivalent to the human we have in a GCC.
Yeah, and I resonate well with that because functional implications, especially if we have our own software called Genie Hire, which is focusing on AI recruitment automation altogether. And those are the profound, going along with the predictive analytics, along with the financial agents, becomes a obvious go-to aspects when it comes down to functional and operations, and then it allows you to scale from there on.
Absolutely.
Now, something more personal. I read your blog recently, and it actually emphasizes on 3D philosophy, dedication, desire, and discipline. I would love to hear something more about it. You spend a lot of time in this industry, and how that implicates.
So I've been in this industry back from 95, 96 when I joined American Express, which was my first GCC foray into the corporate world with American Express. So it's more than 30 years now. Worked with American Express, Stanchart, HP, Metro, Syngenta, Deloitte, and now in Adani Group. I think what I believe is that you need to have the fire in you to do something because the current technology is destructive. Now, you can't keep up pace to this, but you should have desire to learn and move forward, manage that change very effectively. So that's the passion, the fire in you should be there. The second thing which I say, discipline. Discipline is important because in the back office, you are the assurance arm or the one source of truth for the group, whichever group you serve, whichever parent you serve. And unless you have a discipline of doing things, unless you are streamlined, unless you are making sure that you are delivering the results month on month, day on day out, every day, every month, the same thing, and running that as a factory model. The GCC, I believe, is a factory, the back office factory. You say the whole discipline has to be there because otherwise the whole essence of GCC will fail.
Correct.
Because the reliability will come from there. And the first thing as a leader, I think what I say, dedication towards you, dedication towards your work, and dedication towards your people. That's important because as a leader, when you're leading large things, so you need to focus on your people and bring them along. So I think dedication is towards your work, towards your people, and towards the organization, and that's what I believe will make you a great leader.
I think that's couldn't have been put forth in a better way. And talking about that aspect, we are moving on to more cultural aspect on handling multiple GCCs, and we'll move on to that area as well. So Sanjeev, talking about talent, culture, and human side, when we're talking about establishing GCCs that are not only solving a problem but creating cultures as well. So how you have put forth your strategies when creating these sustainable endpoints?
I think so. Wherever I joined and scaled up, I've come with a vision of having a very servant kind of a leadership towards our customer, and I always believe that you are in the service space where whether it is an internal stakeholder or external stakeholder, you are in a servant leadership because you're serving them, and your success is measured by their outlook towards you and their feedback towards you. So that's one aspect. The second thing has been that I've been very democratic leadership. So what I've done basically is bring a huge amount of diversity, not in terms of gender, but in terms of thoughts in my direct leadership. Because that is very encouraging, and they bring different thoughts, different ideas, and that's how you are able to succeed. I always believe that you are as good as your team is. The second principle I applied is do what you say what you do, and walk the talk as a leader. So people should believe in you. You can't uh, demand respect, you can only command respect.
Absolutely.
And the trust is built over that period of time. What I've done is I've empathized with people. I have made a personal connect with people, whether it is coffee talks, whether it's going on the floor. I know people by name, people by face, and I go and greet them and talk to them. So make a personal touch with everybody else, give them the comfort. But of course, one of the key leadership styles which people have spoken about or given me feedback is management by objectives. I'm not a micromanager. I worked on effectively delegation my task, bringing the team up. So people believe that there's no issue of he getting the credit or somebody else getting the credit. So be transparent, be open, give them the feedback at times, and give them a chance to groom and bring. So if you see, a lot of my successes have been within the organization where I have left and moved on. And that's a great testament that you are developing and grooming people and giving them the chance to grow within the organization. And that has been my philosophy in building. Now, in the recent years, we have multiple generations working, baby boomers like us, then we have Gen Zs, then Gen Alpha now coming in. And not everything works, which has worked in the past works now, because the current generation is risk averse. They want to move on. They want to move on 18 months from the job. They say, what is in for me? They don't believe in hierarchy. When we were growing up and you were growing up, we always believed that boss is always right, but that's not true anymore. They want to directly approach you. They directly want to hear from you.
So true.
And they want to grow fast.
Correct,
And
correct.
they're not afraid of the jobs. We were very loyal and we wanted, what will happen to my job? We were very fearful, that kind of atmosphere.
Totally.
But that's not true today. So I think as a leader, we need to learn. I've done reverse mentoring to learn new technologies, new ways of working, understanding the slang, the text. So unless you are with the people, unless you spend time with them, you don't set up. With regards to the culture, I think you need to have an open culture where everybody can express themselves, everybody gets a chance, and of course have a defined talent and investment strategy in people. I think that will where people will stick with you, people will like to work with you. So have very defined leadership structure, talent strategy, and invest in people, and that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And I think it goes along with the Peter Drucker quote of culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Absolutely.
And NSquare, we've been 400 plus now. And this is extremely resonating of what you've established on what culture could do and how we create our immune systems internally, which allows us to not only scale but scale sustainably and model after
Absolutely.
model and can be repeated. And that brings me to another profound question out here is when you talk about scalability, which can be big turnaround, huge sort of scales. So with the timelines, which can go anything between 60 days, 90 days and a year and more. So how you really keep up with these sort of timelines when it comes down to scaling teams?
I think what you need to have whenever I started, and most of my journey has been in setting up multiple GCCs, and this has spanned across the 4 regions. I've worked in North America, I've worked extensively in Europe with Metro Global Services, where we had to move work in 29 different languages. We created a language center in Pune, and that was a unique transition, a unique scale, and we went very slow, first 90 days, 180 days, and then suddenly we ramped up because we had the learning experience. In Deloitte, yes, it took me 2 years, but to 7,000, 6,000 people in 4 centers. In Adani, 3,000 people in less than 2 years. So what you need to have, you need to outline a strategy, blueprint for each function separately. You need to have a stronger team to manage that. You need to have the right structure who can help you scale that up.
Yeah.
And you need to have a greater connect and sign off and skin in the game from the stakeholders. In our case, the promoters, the chairman himself was driving this initiative. But you need to have the blessings, you need to have the concurrence of the stakeholders who are involved and the people who are impacted. When you're talking about the overseas GCCs, the parent organization. So you need to bring them, everybody on the same page and same fold.
Correct.
And the speed improves. But if it is a one-way street that I'm trying to do something without having worked with my stakeholders overseas, without connecting with them, without telling them what I'm trying to do, that really blocks you.
Correct.
So I think as a strategy, have the right set of people with you, right set of vision and blueprint for each function, and right have a stakeholder sign off to work together and to bring that and scale that up.
Superb. And again, we are working ourselves with a lot of technical automations, and it brings a good paradigm shift on how scalability happened in earlier days and how paradigm is shifting right now. So there are a lot of recruitment automations. Teams are expected to scale up a lot more quicker. How technologies possibly, or have you been adapting to some of such automations yourself?
I think what has happened is we have gone to the startups, we have gone to the ecosystem partners, because everything you can't bring on your own board, or you can't build the capability on yourself. Firms like yours, there are many other startups we are working with where they bring a lot of technical knowledge, a lot of tools to implement AIs. So we have created a ecosystem where we're working with partners to improve the processes. We have identified opportunities, what is best in the industry, what's the best practices. So we learn from the fellow GCCs what's happening in that space. We worked also with some big fours to identify those opportunities, those areas. And we embarked on that journey with the right vision, and we created a North Star. And the North Star was that the process is this today, this is how the interim it will be. This is a journey of 6, 9, 12 months, and that's how the end the process will look like. And then you create the ecosystem, right, with the people, the change management, bringing the new technology, the partners,
Correct.
and then you try to achieve that. And I think more or less we have been successful.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point, and it goes again to one of those biggest questions on how AI is impacting reducing the traditional talent analogies against how reskilling, upskilling. So have you seen these kind of aspects being implemented in your new GCC Bible, if you might want to say?
See, AI is here. I think we have yet to see the full impact of the AI, which will come in the next year or so and all that. But we definitely see that the first two layers, where there's a horizontal layer across the organization. I talked about Adani, I talked about many other GCCs. If you look at the finance, it cuts across the group. Yeah, I look at HR, it cuts across the group, the different entities we serve, the different customers we serve. If you look at procurement, it serves again. So that layer, the transactional work, the repetitive task, that is getting automated through AI, that will change.
Okay.
And what will happen is it will have an impact, because it will become much more scalable, automated, much more assured, and the turnaround times will improve, efficiency will improve, effectiveness will improve. So that layer will go away. But what will happen is a different skill set will come into the organization.
Correct.
So what I believe AI, and I'll make a quote that AI will be your Sathi and Sarthi, but not your Swami, in the sense not the owner. You will always have human in loop.
Correct.
But the human in loop will take decisions, will take data into foresight, information, and take decisions and impact the business outcomes. But yes, the automation is coming our way. We will require to upskill our people. We'll require a different skill set of people, and the job skills and the job requirements will definitely change with AI coming in.
And I think the ramp up time that usually goes on manual route, that also we have identified, and of course the solution comes in that sort of context only, to have lower infrastructure when it comes down to a solution on Genie Hire, and it can also have a quicker way to have ramp ups, as well as the proctoring that usually is more important when it comes down to hiring teams. But in these days, proctoring plays a very important role, and that becomes a very profound factor on how teams are skilled, how teams are also being upskilled, using it internally as well as an upskilling factor. And we're also extending it to education sector to have more and more rendezvous with technology, the AI part, and how the recruitment can be conceived in a quicker and better way. So along with that point, when it comes down to talent, on a differential between your traditional and the modern hiring, have you seen any sort of specifics on the cost arbitrage, specifically speaking on tier 1, tier 2 cities, and how these things are changing for you?
I think it again depends on the level of jobs you're hiring. The skill level depends. When we were looking at hiring for core business finance, where you require a lot of intrinsic or functional knowledge, deep knowledge, obviously you look at functional experts, you look at experienced guys. So I think cost is not a factor. It's a factor that what value you are creating, what kind of. So it's not a game of efficiency. While when you process invoices, when you process POs, or you create a factory model, I think then you look at do I get overqualified person or do I get the right fit for the job? And initially, in the initial part of my career, I saw a lot of qualified guys being hired for the basic jobs. What would happen is they will burn out, they will feel demotivated, and they will leave.
Absolutely.
So right now, when we look at this, we look at what is the digital dexterity of these guys, how digital, how AI informed these guys are, how moldable these guys are, how they are able to adopt to the new technology, how will they work in this environment, adopt and that do. So it's a skill fit we have to do for different levels of job, different complexities of the job. And that is how the hiring happens. Of course, for the base level, first two levels of which is horizontal, I don't think there's much of a differential in terms of cost. Yeah, mid and senior levels, when you're looking at, definitely the cost is different in tier 1 and tier 2 cities. But more or less in India, since GCC is quite mature, I think the salaries are evened out now. There could be plus minus 5-10% difference, but we know what band these guys are at.
Absolutely. And when you say cost is not a factor, I think it tells a very important topic of value generation.
Absolutely.
And eventually that's what is imparted to the client, and again becomes an aspect level scalable issue against what problem is being solved.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, totally. So when we talk about culture, of course it brings a stifling issue of diversity, and again we know multicultural country, multicultural executions would need a very strong foundation on diversity. So how you usually address that?
So I think when I've worked with predominantly European organizations, Germany, Italy, France, different countries, I traveled to these 20 odd countries and worked with this. So there's a very different culture aspect in terms of the jobs they do. And I realized that some of my customers they were internal stakeholders. They've been working for 15-20 years in the same process. And the process had matured. They had everything in their mind. So transfer that knowledge was difficult. So in India perspective, I think, so culture is one, that how you want to work with your stakeholders, what is they are asking for, how do you collaborate, how do you work. And I start with a vision, that what is the vision? Bring all your leaders, all your teams, right from team leaders, everybody together. Have a common blueprint, how we want to shape up the organization, what we want. Clearly defines the key KPIs, key outcomes, and on 4 parameters. One is on financial parameters, one is on talent, one is on operations and strategic. And have everybody lead that initiative in your group. And everyone in your organization has a skin in the game. So it's not the CEO just defining the vision and then everybody follows it. It's just everybody putting together a roadmap, a strategic roadmap to achieve that vision. And it's not a goal. Goal is just a milestone. But I say vision. Vision is 3 years, 5 years down the line. Where do you see yourself? Where you want the GCC to be? And everybody has a skin in the game. And a very clear strategy and culture. And once you define and once you start living it and the people start to see the impact, yes, on the talent, they really mean investing in us. There are programs which are supporting this. When I talk about empathy, trust, transparency, unless I show that, unless I quarterly measure their success, unless we reward our people, unless we recognize them,
Absolutely.
unless we make a connect, the culture won't come.
Correct.
So I think you need to execute that very well. You need to make sure that whatever you defined as a culture or as a strategy is implemented on ground. People are able to see and vouch for it. And there's a healthy mechanism to improve and take feedback.
Absolutely.
And that's important, not only from your stakeholders, but also from your employees. Ultimately, you have two major stakeholders for your success. One is, of course, your employees. The second is your stakeholders, your customers. And the third is your management, where you are accountable for. So I did focus a huge on what our customer wanted, how we are delivering on their outcomes and what we have promised. And the second was employees. That what was the promise, what is there for in them, and how we deliver and how we work with them to make sure that they trust the management and and that's how you set up a culture.
Yeah, and that brings me to another important point. We have been propagating very important aspect of grow with us culture along with beyond boundaries, and everything is weaved around not a traditional way of you have to go through some rite of passage to actually achieve something or the duration, but the brilliance the enthusiasm, and the initiation, which actually creates the culture of consistent improvisation, learning culture, and allows professionals or the team members to get that opportunity that they're always thinking. And that's the reason possibly we are seeing a lot of new age professionals at tremendous amount of value and very less of a time. And that sort of platform when they get, it becomes an overall win-win for the team members and overall organizational goals. So I totally agree with the point that you put forth. So Sanjeev, we are moving on to more AI tech and operational excellence part, and nothing can be more less said or more said as compared to how AI tech is moving so fast. We ourselves has been working on digital transformation, tech automation with enterprises long time, and there are two aspects of it. There are parts that they want immediate, but there's tremendous amount of data dependency that actually elongates certain amount of processes. Now, in this case of high demands, AI adoption, and digital tech transformation, what has been your experience in gamut of things when establishing GCC specifically?
See, I think if you look at why did RPA bots or something which failed, which did not take off in as we wanted. Some organizations were quite successful, some were not. Because we did not had homogeneous processes. We had discrete processes. We looked at problems and we're trying to implement digital solutions. And if you look at the part of the problem, rather than having an end-to-end view, you will not have a good solution.
Correct.
And one of the things which my experience in the last 3-4 stints I had was look at the process end-to-end. And does it make sense to implement a new technology or AI or now agentic AI to the entire process, because the outcome should be looked from where do we start and where do we end, and what is the outcome we are looking at, what is the outcome we expect from the implementation of agentic AI or AI right now. And I think what we did was when I realized that for small process we put a bot, we put a pod, we put a bot, the results were very, very different. And though it solved a particular issue, but there was no end-to-end view and the impact was not seen. So now to see the impact, you need to have end-to-end view, end-to-end automation, end-to-end journey. You cannot get immediate results. If you want to do one step right now, implement an RPA, implement a bot, that will work for the time being. But you need to have a journey. It could be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. And it's end-to-end view right from the beginning to the middle part of this and to the end part to see the real outcome and real impact of this. And that's what I believe. And that's how we are embarked on a journey right now.
So, talking about it, are there any pilots that you eventually run to see whether that model is working on the automation standpoint, or you just take a breather, put it in the background, and eventually deploy it when you're more confident?
No, I think any AI implementation is backed by a milestone. And of course, before we implement something, we do a UAT, we do a milestone check, and we see the impact, what it is coming and what it is not doing. Obviously, when you have the end-to-end view, so where the input comes from, if I'm looking at implementing an AI in the input, invoice processing, if I'm doing e-invoicing from paper invoice, if I'm doing something, we see the impact, the result, and we course correct it if there's something not wrong. Then we look at the intermediary process before the final payout happens or something on ITP. Then you look at what do we implement, does it really work, does it really giving what we expected, and then you course correct. And of course, that's where how you do it. You can't just go ahead and then see later on, oh, what did it work, what did not work. You need to have milestones, you need to have a check and validate whether it is working or not. And that's how I see now, where any part of AI implementation, any part of digitization which we have done, and we are now implementing agentic AI, we have looked at, we started, what has been the outcome, what has been the consistent results, and does it tally with what we expected?
Correct. In our case also, when we work specifically in with enterprises, when it has a demanding therapeutic way to deploy AI, now data dependencies, we have got solutions which will eventually have more functional automation done. We have got analytics solutions, and there's tremendous amount of data dependency over there. So the assessments take a good value on starting point. and then fine tune as we go along. So in your case, when these kind of operations are going on, this fine tuning aspect, it is more iterative in your case, that what you mentioned, right?
So I think there are three aspects. One is there's somebody who is impacted by this process. There's somebody who's going to implement this for you, and there's somebody who is a user right now. So you need to have a roadmap, a blueprint for all the three included.
Correct.
How the current process, because every step you do, every step you bring AI or new technology, all these three aspects are impacted. Because there's somebody who's executing the process who will get this benefit. There's somebody who is overseeing implementation of cobotic or AI or a new technology, and there's somebody who is upfronting this process which is a touch point. So I think you bring all them three together. You outline what are the steps, what it requires, and then you implement those, and then you course correct or measure the change, measure the impact, and you need to have KPIs at every step to see. So if there's a process, what is upfront, what has been my result, what has been my success factor, what I need to course correct, what I need to change. Then you go to the medium part, which is input, process part of it, and then the output part of it.
Correct.
And everything has a KPI and a measure of success.
Understandably. And when you talk about KPIs, we have 15 instances of SAP or digital tech where is there a process specifically on unified source of truth, or there is still sort of amalgamation that you are going through as of now?
No, I think we are world class in our finance processes. I'm very proud to say the process started some 10-15 years back. It has taken a lot of time. Our head of finance, which runs, and then our group CFO have been instrumental in driving that change. But if you look at our closing of books, our hosting our annual general meetings, the board meetings, the closures, the fundraising, the compliances with SEBI and everything, has been picture perfect, has been immaculate. We are one of the best in terms of closing our books on time, in terms of compliance, in terms of disclosure, in terms of filing that on time. So I would say excellent defining that. Though there are different instances, the process run very smoothly across. The processes are homogeneous, the standardized processes. Of course, each business has its own unique way of doing things. Each business has their own complexity in terms of vendors. Each business has a different style of business because the business is different. But what has stuck and what has helped us is that you have defined the entire process. The entire SOP runs the same.
Correct.
While you customize to the business requirement, but the underlying process is the same. The policies, the framework, the processes remains the same. I think that's a strength. That's how you deliver the described or the prescribed outcomes.
Correct. I think you answered the next question because that's what I was coming to. When you have different sectors, have different disciplines, I think SOP on foundation level matters, because then there are different challenges on the processes or setting up processes and the outcomes which are being expected. Well, of course, the timelines come into the picture as well. So talking about these complexities, now you're talking about unified truth, or how AI specifically is going to change the predictiveness part of it. Because in our case as well, we are wanting, or business wanting to have more predictive analytics, wanting to have more forecasting specific engines, and that's what we are also building. So what are the parts that you're deploying on the predictive analytics standpoint for your business navigations?
So far, we have not gone on a predictive, of course, but what we have done is we are predicting the outcomes of the processes. So whether it is invoice processing, whether it is PO, whether it is, so we are implementing at the process level. We are implementing, making sure that we are defined the outcomes. That is how it look like. It will reduce. It will. So we work on a 3E framework. So the AI will bring efficiency definitely. It will bring effectiveness in terms of the assurance. It will bring in terms of compliances, in terms of one source of truth. And the third one is excellence. That this is a best-in-class process, both in terms of cost, both in terms of delivery in time, both in terms of the outcomes for the shareholders or the stakeholders. So based on this 3E framework, anything we do, we evaluate any AI implementation and this efficiency, effectiveness, and excellence. That's what we have done.
Great. So we are moving on to more how GCC is more impactful and how the future looks like GCC specifically for India. Now we have seen geopolitical shifts right now as well, and I would like to know what sort of on an international ground how it impacts GCC sector in India specifically.
So I think a very good question. Let me answer in a different way. So I think GCC will become the nerve center for any parent organization, any organization which is trying to set up a GCC. We have seen Fortune 2000 companies already here. Now we see probably Fortune 5000 companies coming here, setting up GCCs. We have seen a lot of innovative GCCs being set up in R&D space, automotive space, robotic space. I will call them now. The GCC term will change. I will call them in the future as game changer catalysts. I was reading a report from McKinsey where it said that the 70% of the S&P companies will have their business model change, and that would be augmented or managed by the GCCs backend. So if you're going to change your business models, if you've seen last few years, right from having an asset, physical assets, it's all become patents and the value which is now look at Meta, look at Google, look at all the IT companies, the valuations, Nvidia and all that. They don't own assets. Earlier, there were car companies, there were manufacturing companies which had the biggest values. The value system has changed. So GCC will become the DNA of the organization, the nerve centers. They will help implement the business strategies, the change in plans, the change in strategies. Business will change with the advent of AI, the new technologies coming in. And I see with the geopolitical situations, India is in a very good place to get more of GCCs. Right now we have around 1600 to 1700. The number keeps changing, but we'll go to 2200 in next couple of years. Every week, 2 weeks, we have one GCC coming up in India. So that gives us an advantage. GCC is in 3 or 4 phases. First is bring your transition work into India. I think most of the GCCs, 80% have moved up the curve. Now they are in transformation stage. The third are very mature, which are very specific to R&D, innovation, labs, etc. The fourth one is they're adopting AI in a big way, and they're integrated well with their businesses. So what I see of the next 2 to 3 years, GCC is getting integrated not as a back office, but as a part of business strategy, implementing those strategies and executing those strategies.
Absolutely, and the whole geopolitical shifts also bring in business continuity aspect.
Absolutely.
That makes us again a central hub. But especially again, talking about we began with the cost arbitrage, that the fact that that we were having few years back one of those India's cost was one of those aspects, but now that's shifting now, and it's more have become more tech heavy. So how does that impact eventually on the talent part and the tech part?
See, cost arbitrage is one time. So when you set up something, of course, you benchmark against the salaries and all that. But again, then you look at the kind of attrition we have, the kind of salary raises we have. The mid and senior salaries are equivalent, if not 100% same as our international market. So I would say that one-time savings come through this, but there's a huge amount of infrastructure we spend on this. We do on technology, we do on AI. So that takes out. I think the GCC will survive not because of cost arbitrage, very clearly. That's of the past, because it's a one-time saving you capture and you move on. The GCC will survive moving on the value chain and moving on data, moving on data science, data engineering, moving on implementing AI, managing technology for the group, managing business strategy for the group. So the value will not come from the cost arbitrage at all. The value will come what kind of talent you will get.
Correct.
And I personally believe, I'm making a statement that if you're going to be successful, 25% of your global leadership would come from the GCCs. And they will move up the value chain because they will understand the end-to-end processes. They will have better knowledge. They will understand how the business is getting impacted, and they will move into the global role. So we will become a talent factory and talent hub. So cost arbitrage, I don't think is the game anymore.
Absolutely, and totally agree with that. Now that we have understood there's eventual good prospects as far as Indian GCC markets are concerned, but there are other European regions as well which are again on the Southeast Asia parts as well. So how it competes against current capability that we have, or any sort of readings that we have seen that are more nudging towards how ecosystem in India versus these other competitive areas?
I think India has a very distinct advantage. One, we work 24 by 7 in terms of support. Language availability is no more a challenge.
Correct.
We support all the languages. I myself set up a 20 country support system in Pune with Metro, where we were supporting Czech, Slovak, Polish, Italian, French, German in a big way. And so language is not an issue. Scalability is a very big plus for us. The domain knowledge in IT, the domain knowledge in processes, and proven cases is a very good advantage. And I think cost arbitrage, of course, makes sense. Their company, they are Poland, Hungary, Budapest. I think they are the thing that is more near shore. As a most of the organizations have, I would say, hub and spoke model. So hub would remain in India. Of course, in Syngenta also we had Budapest, we had Montevideo, because it's near shore kind of a approach. So you have offshore, near shore, and that model will continue. But you will see 80% or more than 75% of the process being housed in India. And there are GCCs which are out of the 1600, 1700, 80% of them has almost 80 to 90% processes based out of India. Talent availability, scalability, language, time zones, everything works in our favor.
Correct. And especially, of course, the stats have been pretty much predominant with, again, 2 million, more than 2 million professionals, again, few $100 billion revenue that GCC generates.
The GCC industry is $100 billion right now in terms of exports. We call it ITS. That's a big chunk. 3 million direct employment, indirect employment through food vendors, transport, other infrastructure and other vendors. So we are a big employment generator. India is the biggest hub. We have almost 2 to 3 million graduates passing out every year. So it's a big employment generator. And India is able to scale up and create value in terms of outcomes. And we have proven large companies which have done that. Of course, we'll have to see how AI plays on that. But I think India is very early adopter from a cultural perspective, easy to implement, easy to execute. And technology, I think India is, after the US initially, India has the Silicon Valley and we are known as a Silicon Valley.
Absolutely. And how even our own GCC service sector, we have identified there's a good innovation center requirement as innovation center as GCCs, and it is more shifting towards AI tech innovation centers. Have you seen any sort of shifts on usual functional GCCs and how innovation centers are more exploring as the market or the paradigm shift that's happening?
See, I've been working with 3 or 4 major brands in the world. They come and ask for some guidance, and I will not get mentorship, but they have visited us in Ahmedabad. They visited in the past. So there are some still starting, and they are predominantly very major French organizations. Some of them are in Netherlands. So they are still starting on what should be moved to India. Yeah. So culturally, it doesn't come naturally to European organizations. But yes, there are enough cases, business cases, where they have seen a lot of these organizations starting and doing really well and getting advantage of setting up a GCC in India. So it rubs on, that's how you manage costs, how you manage your profits, how you manage your bottom line these days. Mm-hmm. So, and one of these, they still are based on functions. What function should move to India? What should be retained in the parent organization, which is more strategy, business development, growth, sales. And typically, if I see 90% of them which are coming are basically finance, HR, and part of procurement. Of course, there are GCCs which are very typical of R&D, engineering, and all that, but they are very specific. They are very core. But if you look at general GCCs, the first one to start is finance, back office operations. And now they have started to realize that, yes, rather than being the transactional processing in HR and finance, in the finance area, you can move up the value chain, you can implement technology, you can bring finance, business, budgeting, reporting, consolidation, etc., closing of books, etc. So the value chain has moved, and there are enough business cases. We have enough number of people, talent, and people already doing it. So I think India is going to grow. Of course, this will be functional. This will not go away unless you're very specific in core engineering process side, innovation side, automotive side, robotic side. But yeah, functional will still be the key over the next few years.
Understandable. Now we've spoken about technology, we've spoken about functional operations, then talent specifically even, especially in India, when it comes down to governance or the compliances, how it correlates with the actual execution and facilitates the whole GCC decorum.
See, anything you do in finance, HR, procurement, the underlying is that there is a governance, strong governance into this. Now, earlier, when I started back in the earlier GCCs with HP, Metro, we realized that the global process owners, the process ownership used to reside outside,
Yeah.
where, for example, in Syngenta, we were operating out of 90 countries. So there had to be a single owner who will manage it from the head office and this. But what we have realized of late is that when you have moved 90% of your process, the process owner sits in India itself now. So that paradigm is changing. You own the process, you define the policies, you define the structure. So the ownership lies with you.
Correct.
So it's while the process make. So I've seen. I'll give an example. So for A2R, it was sitting in Budapest. For procure to pay, it was sitting in India now completely. For payment factory, it was sitting in India. So it again defines the maturity of the process, the maturity of the organization, the maturity of the GCC, and more global organizations are willing to put the global process ownership, the defining of standardization, SOPs, policies, framework in India, because they feel we know the best how the process runs, we are able to implement, and they are very confident that we can manage the process end to end from here. Earlier, the confidence was low, and that's why most of the decisions on anything used to come from the head office, and there would be somebody you will go and bounce off and get a sign off. But some of the processes now, I've seen that the ownership is done with the GCC itself, and that's very clearly a maturity curve that Indian GCCs have moved up to.
Absolutely. And of course, one of the final questions personally as well. How would you advise, or how your experience would rather speak for newer GCC leaders, and what are the areas they should be focusing on?
I think one of the key thing is that have a seat on the table. When I started with Adani Group, my reporting was to Gautam Bhai, and that really helped me because then you have the seat on the table, you are able to influence, you are able to get what you need. So I think get on the seat on the table wherever organizations you are working with the parent organization. That's important because you are able to influence. The second thing is bring out clearly what's the vision of the GCC and how the parent should support you. Give the availability of talent. What is the art of possible here? Bring that to the table. Have a strategy, have a blueprint, and get a sign off. The third thing is don't look at managing mess for less or just cost. Look at what and how you implement your outcomes, how you support your businesses, and don't look at KPIs of turnaround time, efficiency, cost, because those are gone. That is given while you come to India with the maturity of talent, the maturity of process. But how you can create value, how you can impact business outcomes, how you can create, you can connect with stakeholders and do more. Just don't be happy with what you are doing and what is coming. So have a seat on the table, take decisions, influence, work with stakeholders, and have a different business outcome KPIs.
Totally, I think that puts a very good point across when it comes down to staging levels after level, with right from building the foundations, SOPs, your functional versus tech aspects, and what are the actually scalability model with the AI tech that comes into the picture, and how it will allow you to keep on to timelines and scale within time as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sanjeev. It has been a fantastic, insightful discussion. We have spoken about tech, talent, operation, and again, the impact of AI, and again, how GCC would impact current Indian industry. At NSquare, we have been working with the tech or digital tech transformation for more than 13 years now, and we bring GCC as a service as well, right from the operations part to the tech enablement and AI innovation. We have been working with industries like healthcare, retail, facilities management, telecommunications, so on and so forth. That brings us in a very good spot of understanding technology scapes and how we correlate on implicative technology along with the IT service innovation. So it's been a fantastic discussion, Sanjeev. We're looking forward to meet soon.
No, thank you. And as I said, it's a pleasure having a conversation today. It was on various topics, and I'm very passionate about GCC because this is something we can. This goes a long way in nation building. I'm very proud that GCCs are contributing to not only the foreign exchange but also creating India on a global map, creating employment, and making a business shift. And a lot of global companies are looking India as the hub for the GCCs. Thank you again. Best wishes to NSquare. I know you have grown pretty fast. You have 400 people organization. Very impressive journey. And thank you again for having me here today.
It's been an honor. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We have spoken probably on less touched topic of GCC, and I've been ever glad that Sanjeev has been there with us to give direct insights of how GCC market looks like and what his personal experiences have been. It's great to be here again and looking forward for bringing you more insights on this.